welcome back to the Super Shed for some more Halloween stories. And our story today is specially for Sophia. Sophia, I was talking to your Nana Joan and she tells me that she misses you loads and loads and loads and that she sends all her love to you. So remember, if you're thinking of your Nana Joan is thinking of you and she sends all her love. So I wonder, what could our story be today? Dun, dun, dun. Our Halloween story today, especially for Sophia, is Funnybones. This is how the story begins. On a dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. In the dark, dark town, there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down the dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. And in the dark, dark cellar, some skeletons lived. There was a big skeleton, a little skeleton, and a dog skeleton. One night, the big skeleton sat up in bed and he scratched his skull. "What shall we do tonight?" he said. "Let's take the dog for a walk," said the little skeleton, "and frighten somebody." "Good idea," the big skeleton said. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and the dog skeleton left the dark, dark cellar, climbed the dark, dark staircase, and stepped out into the dark, dark street. They walked past the houses and the shops. They walked past the zoo and the police station, and they went into the park. The big skeleton scratched his skull. "What shall we do now?" he said. "Let's play on the swings," said the little skeleton, "and throw a stick for the dog and frighten somebody." "Good idea," the big skeleton said. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and the dog skeleton walked round the dark, dark pond, past the dark, dark tennis courts, and up to the dark, dark swings. The big skeleton and the little skeleton played on the swings. They threw a stick for the dog. Suddenly, something happened. The dog skeleton chased the stick, tripped over a park bench, and bumped into a tree, and ended up as a pile of bones. "Look at that," the big skeleton said. "He's all come to pieces. What shall we do now?" "Let's put him together again," the little skeleton said. So the big skeleton and the little skeleton put the dog skeleton together again, and they sang a song while they did it. The toe bone's connected to the foot bone's connected to the leg bone's connected to the hip bone's connected to the backbone. They got all mixed up. "Is that a toe bone?" the little skeleton said. "Where does this one go?" said the big skeleton. When they had finished, the big skeleton said, "That dog looks a bit funny to me." "So he does," said the little skeleton. "We've got his tail on the wrong end. And his head. Poof, said the dog skeleton. At last, the dog was properly put back together again. The big skeleton and the little skeleton sang another song. These bones can bark again, can run around in the park again, can frighten people in the dark again. The big skeleton scratched his skull. That reminds me, he said, we forgot to frighten somebody. Let's do it on the way home then, said the little skeleton. Good idea, said the big skeleton. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and the dog skeleton left the dark, dark swings, went out into the dark, dark town, and tried to frighten somebody. The trouble was, there wasn't anybody. Everybody was in bed. Even the policemen in the police station were in bed. Even the animals in the zoo. Of course, the skeleton animals were awake. Gee up, Nelly. Good evening all. Who's a cheeky boy then? Have a cup of tea, pretty Polly. Put the kettle on, mother. Let's have a ride on the elephant skeleton, the little skeleton said. Let's have a word with the parrot skeleton. The big skeleton scratched his skull. Let's keep out of the way of the crocodile skeleton, he said. When they went back in the street, and when they could still not find anybody to frighten, the big skeleton said, What shall we do now? The little skeleton scratched his skull. Let's frighten each other, he said. That's better than nothing. Good idea, the big skeleton said. So after that, the big skeleton frightened the little skeleton skeleton frightened the big skeleton and the little skeleton frightened the dog skeleton, and the dog skeleton frightened them. Meow! Woof! Ooh! They hid round corners and frightened each other. They climbed up lampposts and frightened each other. They jumped out of dustbins and frightened each other. All the way home. And that is how the story ends. On a dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. In the dark, dark town, there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down the dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. In the dark, dark cellar, some skeletons lived. And they still do. And that's the end of our story today, especially for Sophia from her Nana Joan that sends all her love. So I hope you're having lots of Halloween fun at home, and remember, we'll have lots more Halloween stories coming soon. Bye!